Hey everyone, welcome back to Dev Parkour. My last couple of videos have been about Agile, and how maybe Agile isn't the silver bullet you may have heard it billed as. I recently got a piece of feedback from someone in a Slack group I'm in. Challenge accepted. A hackathon is a one-week sprint based on your definition. I'd like to hear why you pulled back from that thought at the end. 2. Agile isn't a process. Scrum is, though. 3. Uncared for teams lead to burnout, not processes. 4. Engaged teams are more productive than teams who are suffering. Overall, I'd argue you put too much emphasis on defining Agile as something that it's not. It sounds like you've experienced some of the following: a misaligned process, process dogma, poor product vision, disengaged team in part or in whole, poor quality communication. Those aren't Agile problems or waterfall problems. They are people problems. Well, he's absolutely right. And before we get into why he's right, I want to say that of course he's right because he's actually an expert on the subject. He's an Agile coach, and I'll leave some contact information for him down in the video description. Essentially, the issue with the last two videos is that I've conflated three aspects that are commonly associated with the discussions we have about Agile: philosophy or paradigm, process or methodology, and people or culture. I've done this because a lot of the conversations where I've heard people adamantly defend or vehemently oppose their particular experience with Agile tend to do the same, but just because everybody else does it doesn't mean I should too. Truthfully, I should be defending Agile's merits for their intrinsic merit and highlighting the flaws in implementation as just that, flaws in implementation. Just so we're all on the same page, what do I mean by philosophy, process, and people? For philosophy, I mean whether you build software in discrete phases, producing comprehensive documentation at the end of each phase, and producing one deliverable at the very end, or do you subscribe to the values set out in the Agile Manifesto? This is completely independent of your choice of process, which could mean XP, Kanban, or one of the many varieties of Scrum. And finally, people, which literally means the people at your organization and their particular interpretation, or perhaps misinterpretation, of the philosophy and process you strive to adhere to. With those definitions in mind, let's talk about the points Thomas made in his message to me. So, a hackathon is a one-week sprint, but why did I pull back from that? Well, I think there's a misunderstanding of what actually happens in a hackathon, or at least the ones I've been involved in. Typically, people don't show up on day one wondering what the project will be, then have to both figure it out and build it in the allotted time. Typically, the project is known beforehand, and while it may evolve over the course of the week, any time the participants spent thinking about the project and how they might solve its component challenges will not be completely wasted. So it's clearly a different process, but the minute I said the word misunderstanding, alarm bells should have been going off that this is a people problem. Some people think all relevant work took place during the 1 week. Others assume there is additional work to be done after the week, if anything from the actual hackathon is to be production ready. Still others know that there is relevant effort being spent both before and after the 1 week of the hackathon. Next up, Agile isn't a process. Absolutely correct. Agile is not a process. Lots of people unfortunately do refer to Agile, capital A Agile, as if it was a process, and unfortunately I fall into that trap. Typically, when I refer to Agile as if it were a process, I'm referring to something that looks essentially Scrum-like. Still, no excuse, and I will try to fix my choice of words. Next, what leads to burnout? Poorly implemented processes, sure, but also uncared for teams. Again, pretty obviously a people problem. Engaged teams are more productive than teams who are suffering. Sure, and what is that? A people problem. Now, the list in the second half of the post was particularly uncomfortable because I've definitely felt one or more of these at various points in my career, and I have to say that I don't know I've always been the best at combating them whenever they came up. But every single one of them is, again, a people problem. So to revisit the conclusions from my previous two videos, hackathons end up being more productive because a group of passionate participants self-organize around a goal they're already thinking about solving and are able to sustain momentum because it's only required for a short period of time, while simultaneously the expectations are more specific and potentially much lower. The output doesn't have to be production ready, just demo quality. As we'll discuss in greater depth in the next video, if you can bring this same dynamic to your typical process, you can get similar productivity. And naturally, this difference of perspective, if you do feel unable to sustain momentum and energy outside of the hackathon context, is, you guessed it, a people problem. As for Agile, and more specifically Scrum, being scaled down, iterative, pipelined waterfall, I do still feel there tends to be a push to turn software projects into a small-scale, iterative, pipelined process to the point where context switching rules the day and engineers don't get enough time to think about how they should be accomplishing things. But I don't think we can put all the blame on by-the-book Scrum. If we're finding that we're running into issues with our current process and how we approach and understand it, that's on us to have retrospectives and change it. And if our retrospectives aren't effective, well, that's a topic for another video, but it's still all a people or culture problem. Hopefully that sheds some light on what I was actually trying to get at in my last two videos. I'll leave them linked below, as well as some contact information for Thomas Robbs, whose thoughtful response to the last two videos led directly to this one. Like I said earlier, this is what he does, and he's the expert. If you want to talk to an expert about your Agile process, or how to navigate your approach to your philosophy and process, you can send email to info@agilecaddie.com, also linked below. If you liked the video, please give a thumbs up. If you're not already subscribed, please subscribe and click the bell icon. And as always, I welcome all of your comments and questions in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again very soon.